can I live in the doggy houses?" asked the homeless boy to the vet. Dr. Michael Williams had seen many tough situations in his 7 years as a veterinarian, but nothing had prepared him for that moment. The afternoon was warm in Lexington, Kentucky, when he heard small, hesitant footsteps entering his clinic. Looking up from the last patient's chart, he saw a boy no older than 5, barefoot, wearing a worn beige t-shirt and torn shorts. The child pointed a grubby little finger at the colorful houses where recovering animals rested. "Mister, can I live in one of these little houses?" he asked in a thin voice that made Michael's heart clench. The vet felt the world stop. The words came from the child's mouth with devastating simplicity, as if asking for shelter in doghouses were the most normal thing in the world. "What do you mean, little one?" Michael crouched down to eye level with the boy's deep, dark eyes. "I don't have a home. I've been sleeping outside a long time, but I saw you have really pretty little houses for the animals. Do you think a boy could fit in one?" The raw honesty of those words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. He'd lost his own mother at 8 and knew the feeling of helplessness well, but he'd never imagined a child so young living on the streets. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Everyone calls me Timmy." "But I don't remember my real name," the boy replied, scratching his skinny belly peeking beneath his shirt. "And where are your parents, Timmy?" The boy shrugged, a gesture that seemed too old for his age. "Don't know. My grandma Rose said my mom left when I was born. She took care of me, but she got sick and—" His voice cracked. "The men in white took her in a car and said I had to go somewhere, but I ran away." Michael felt a lump in his throat. His receptionist, Nancy, had stepped out for lunch, so he was alone with the boy. He glanced around the clinic, trying to process the situation. The blue, green, red, and orange plastic houses for recovering animals must have looked to a child's eyes like perfect little homes. "How long have you been alone?" he asked, still crouched. "Lots of days or weeks. I can't count too good." Timmy fidgeted with his dirty little fingers. "But I promise I won't bother the animals. I really like animals." Grandma Rose had a cat named Snowball. Michael's heart broke with every word. He looked at the animal houses, then at the boy's hopeful face. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that this was impossible? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Are you hungry?" Michael asked, temporarily changing the subject. Timmy's eyes lit up as he nodded vigorously. "So hungry. Yesterday I found half a bread roll in the bakery trash, but today I didn't find nothing." Michael stood and went to his desk where he'd left his uneaten sandwich from lunch. He handed it to the boy, who grabbed the food with both hands like it was treasure. "Slow down, little one. Chew it well," he advised, watching Timmy devour the sandwich. As the boy ate, Michael tried to gather his thoughts. He couldn't let a child live in his veterinary clinic, but he also couldn't imagine turning him over to authorities without knowing if he'd be cared for properly. His own childhood experiences with shelters hadn't been good. "All done," Timmy said, licking his fingers. "Thank you, Mr. Doctor. Now can I pick my little house?" The innocence of the question made Michael sigh deeply. How could he explain that life wasn't so simple? "Timmy, these little houses are for sick animals. They need to stay here until they get better. But I'm sick too," the boy replied, lifting his shirt to show his swollen belly. "It always hurts here, and my feet hurt from walking so much." Michael looked at the wounds on the boy's bare feet and felt a deep anger. How could a child be going through this while everyone simply ignored it? "You know what, Timmy? I'm going to take a look at your feet. I'm an animal doctor, but I think I can help a little." He picked up the boy, surprised by how light he was, and placed him on the exam table. Carefully, he cleaned the wounds with saline solution and applied bandages. "There, that'll help," he said, stroking the boy's dirty, curly hair. "You're really nice," Timmy murmured, resting his little head on Michael's shoulder. "Could you be my dad?" The question hit Michael hard. At 32, he'd devoted himself entirely to his career after a bad breakup. He'd never seriously thought about having children, but something in that moment made his heart swell in a way he'd never known. "Timmy, things aren't that simple," he tried to explain. There are rules, paperwork. But I don't need paperwork, the boy interrupted. I just need a place to sleep and someone who likes me. Grandma Rose says love doesn't need paperwork. Michael closed his eyes for a moment. The child's simple wisdom completely disarmed him. Just then, the clinic door opened and Nancy returned from lunch. The 50-year-old woman stopped in the doorway, staring at the scene in surprise. Dr. Michael, what's going on? She asked, noticing the boy sitting on the exam table. Nancy, this is Timmy. He needs help. The receptionist approached, her maternal gaze quickly understanding the situation. Working at a veterinary clinic for over 10 years had taught her to recognize wounded creatures, and what she saw in that boy broke her heart. Hi, sweetheart, she said softly. You have such beautiful hair. Timmy smiled shyly but didn't let go of Michael's hand. Nancy, could you stay with him for a minute? I need to make some calls, Michael asked. Of course, doctor. Come here, Timmy. I'll show you the kittens we have. Michael went to his office and closed the door. He needed to think. He needed to act. But what should he do? He called his sister Jennifer, a social worker in Chicago. Jennifer, I need your help. It's about a child. He quickly explained the situation, listening to his sister's practical advice about the necessary legal procedures. But as he spoke, he could hear Timmy's giggles through the door as he played with the animals. Michael, you know you'll have to report this to the authorities, right? Jennifer said. You can't just keep a child like that. I know, but Jennifer, you should see his eyes. He literally has nothing in the world. I understand your concern, but there are protocols. The boy needs to go to a shelter while they look for his family. What if he has no family? What if the shelters don't take good care of him? Jennifer sighed on the other end. Michael, you've always been so emotional. Remember when you brought all those stray dogs home when we were kids? Mum almost lost her mind. Michael smiled sadly. It was true. He'd always had too big a heart for helpless creatures. Give me until tomorrow morning. Just tonight. I need to talk to him, understand the situation better. All right, but first thing tomorrow you have to call Lexington Child Protective Services. It's mandatory. When he hung up, Michael returned to the reception area and found a scene that moved him deeply. Timmy was sitting on the ground beside the little green doghouse, whispering softly to a stray dog that had been hit by a car and was recovering. Hi, Spotty, the boy murmured. I got hurt just like you. But the nice doctor fixed my feet, so I think he'll take care of you too. The dog, who was usually wary of strangers, was licking Timmy's little hand through the bars of the doghouse. Nancy approached Michael. Doctor, in 20 years of working with animals, I've never seen anything like this. It's like they recognize a similar pain in him. Michael watched the natural connection between the boy and the animals. There was something special about Timmy, a sensitivity that touched not just the animals but also the people around him. Timmy, how about you stay here tonight? I can set up a little mattress in the back room. The boy's eyes lit up like stars. Really? I can really stay here with the animals? Yes, you can, but just for tonight, okay? Timmy nodded eagerly, unaware of the tension behind Michael's promise. The afternoon passed quickly. Timmy helped Nancy give water to the animals, always with care and tenderness. When she had to leave to pick up her grandson from school, Michael was left alone with the boy. Dr. Michael, Timmy said, tugging at the hem of the white coat. Can I ask you something? Of course, little one. Do you have a family? The question caught Michael off guard. He looked at Timmy's curious face and decided to be honest. I have a sister who lives far away. My parents, they passed when I was little, like you. So you were alone too. I was. That's why I understand how you feel. Timmy held Michael's hand with his small fingers. Grandma Rose used to say that people who've been through sad things can help other sad people better. Do you think that's true? Michael felt his eyes grow damp. The wisdom of this child amazed him at every turn. I think your grandma was a very wise woman. She really was. She taught me how to take care of Snowball when he got sick. I gave him medicine every day. Really? How did you do it? I sang a little song she taught me, and Snowball would calm down and take the medicine. Want me to sing it for the animals here? Michael nodded, curious to hear. Timmy moved closer to the doghouses and began humming a simple, sweet melody about little animals getting better with lots of love and care. His high-pitched voice echoed through the clinic, and Michael noticed the animals really did seem to settle. "Where did your grandma learn that song?" he asked, impressed. "She said her mother sang it, and her mother before her. It's a family song." Michael realized that despite being so young, Timmy carried with him a legacy of care and love passed down through generations. How could anyone just abandon a child like this? As evening approached, Michael went to grab some groceries from the corner bakery. He left Timmy at the clinic for a few minutes, keeping an eye on him through the window. When he returned, he found the boy talking to Mrs. Wilson, a 70-year-old woman who lived next to the clinic and always brought her 3 cats in for checkups. "Dr. Michael," Mrs. Wilson called, her eyes filled with tears. "This boy told me he's all alone in the world." "Yes, Mrs. Wilson. It's a complicated situation." The woman knelt in front of Timmy. "Sweetheart, you remind me so much of my grandson who lives far away. How about I bring you some clothes tomorrow?" "You'd do that for me?" Timmy asked, eyes shining. "Of course, my dear. And I'll bring some tasty food too." Michael watched the interaction and realized Timmy had a special gift for touching people's hearts. There was something about him that awakened others' protective instincts. Night fell, and Michael improvised a bed in the back room of the clinic using some blankets he kept for the larger animals. Timmy lay down, exhausted but with a smile on his face. "Dr. Michael, thank you for letting me stay here. It's the prettiest place I've ever lived." "Prettiest? Timmy, it's just a small room. But it smells clean, has warm lights, and you're close by. Grandma Rose used to say home isn't a place, it's where someone takes care of you." Michael sat on the edge of the makeshift bed, his heart heavy. "Tell me more about your Grandma Rose. She was the kindest person in the world?" Timmy began, his eyes growing distant. "She worked as a cleaner in big houses, but she always came home with something tasty for us to eat together. She taught me letters and numbers and said I was really smart." "I'm sure you are very smart. When she got sick, I tried to take care of her like she took care of me. I brought her water, stroked her forehead when it was hot, but it didn't help." Timmy's voice grew small and Michael saw a tear roll down his dirty little face. "She told me she'd get better, but one day she couldn't open her eyes anymore. Then those men came and—" His voice faded. Michael felt a deep ache in his chest. How had a 5-year-old child endured so much loss and pain? "You were very brave, Timmy. You took care of someone you loved. That's so important." "But I couldn't save her," the boy murmured, softly sobbing. Michael picked him up, feeling his small body tremble with tears. "Sometimes we can't save the ones we love, but the love we give them stays in their hearts forever. Your grandma took your love with her." "You really think so?" "I'm sure of it. And you know what? She also left so much love here with you. That's why you can calm the animals, why people like you. Your grandma's love is inside your heart." Timmy snuggled into Michael's arms, and for the first time in weeks, he felt truly safe. "Dr. Michael, if I were your son, would you like me?" The question struck Michael like lightning. He looked at that hopeful little face and felt something shift deep in his chest. "Timmy, I already like you so much. In just one afternoon, you changed everything here at the clinic." "Changed how?" "You brought joy, you brought life. The animals got calmer. Mrs. Wilson smiled more than I've ever seen, and I remembered how good it feels to take care of someone." Timmy smiled and closed his little eyes, finally relaxing. Within minutes, he was fast asleep. Michael sat there, watching the child who had appeared out of nowhere, and turned his world upside down. How could he hand him over to the system the next day? How could he break that innocent trust? But he also knew he couldn't just ignore the rules. Timmy needed documents, formal education, proper medical care. He needed a real family. Dawn came without Michael getting much sleep. He kept watching Timmy, who was sleeping peacefully for the first time in a long while. Every now and then, the boy murmured incomprehensible words, probably dreaming of his grandmother. At 6 in the morning, Michael decided to make a special breakfast. He left early to buy fresh bread from the bakery and milk for Timmy. When he returned, he found the boy awake, playing with Snowball 2, an orphaned kitten that had arrived at the clinic the week before. "Good morning, Dr. Michael," Timmy said cheerfully. The kitten missed having someone to play with. "Good morning, little one. I brought breakfast for you." As Timmy ate heartily, Michael gathered the courage for the difficult conversation he needed to have. "Timmy, I need to explain something important to you." The boy stopped eating and looked at him carefully. "There are people who work taking care of children who don't have families. They'll want to talk to you, understand your situation." "Will they take me away?" asked Timmy, his face tightening with fear. "They'll try to find the best solution for you." "But I already found the best solution," the boy said, pointing around. "Here with you and the animals." Michael felt his heart break. How could he explain to a child that the adult world was full of complications? "Timmy, I wish it were that simple too. But for you to stay here, I'd have to go through a lot of processes, a lot of evaluations." "What kind of evaluations?" "Well, they'd need to see if I'm able to take care of a child, if I have enough money, if my home is suitable, if—" "But you took really good care of me yesterday," Timmy interrupted. "And your house smells nice and is clean. And you have money because you bought fresh bread for me." The boy's simple logic made so much sense that Michael almost laughed. If only the world worked with the clarity of a child's mind. At that moment, the clinic door opened and Nancy arrived for work. She carried a bag of clothes. "Good morning, everyone. I brought some clothes that belong to my grandson. I think they'll fit Timmy." The boy ran to hug Nancy, who returned the affection with tears in her eyes. "Nancy," Michael called softly, "I need to make that call this morning." She nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. At 9 o'clock, Michael called Lexington Child Protective Services. He explained the situation and was told that a social worker would come to the clinic early in the afternoon to assess the case. When he hung up, he saw Timmy watching him with those big, intelligent eyes. "Are they coming to take me away?" the boy asked, not angrily, just with deep sadness. "They're coming to talk with us. They'll want to understand what's best for you." "I already know what's best for me," Timmy murmured, walking back toward the animal cages. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. The morning passed slowly. Timmy helped care for the animals with impressive dedication for his age. He had quickly learned where the water bowls were and how to approach the more skittish animals. Around noon, Mrs. Wilson appeared with a bag full of homemade food and clean clothes. "How's our little angel today?" she asked, hugging Timmy affectionately. "Mrs. Wilson, the government people are coming here today," Timmy said sadly. "Oh, my dear. Sometimes adults make things more complicated than they need to be," the woman replied, giving Michael a meaningful look. At 2 in the afternoon, the social worker arrived. She was a young woman about 28 who introduced herself as Karen Miller. "Dr. Michael, I'm from Child Protective Services. I'm here to assess the child's situation." Michael greeted her professionally but noticed Timmy had hidden behind the animal cages as soon as he saw the uniformed woman. "Is the boy scared?" Karen observed. "He's been through traumatic situations recently, losing his grandmother, living on the streets." Karen slowly approached where Timmy was hiding. "Hi, sweetheart, I'm Karen. I came here so we could talk a little." Timmy looked at her suspiciously but didn't answer. "He was like that with me at first, too," Michael explained. "He needs time to trust people." Karen spent nearly an hour trying to talk to Timmy, who only responded with gestures or one-word answers. She asked many questions: where he had slept, what he had eaten, if anyone had hurt him. "Doctor, Michael," she finally said in private, "the child needs to be placed in temporary shelter while we investigate for relatives." "What if there aren't any?" "Then he'll become available for adoption." "How long does that process take?" "It could take months, even years. It depends on many factors." Michael felt a heaviness in his stomach. Months or years of uncertainty for a child who had already suffered so much. "Is there any chance he could stay with me temporarily, as a foster family?" Karen studied him for a moment. "You'd have to go through an evaluation process. You'd need to prove income, take preparation courses, undergo psychological screening. How long would that take? At least 3 months. And in the meantime, the child would stay in the shelter. Michael looked at Timmy, who was watching the conversation from a distance, clearly worried. Can I have a moment with him before you leave? Karen nodded and stepped away. Michael crouched down in front of Timmy. Little one, Karen is going to take you to a place with other kids. It's just temporary while we sort things out. I don't want to go, Timmy said, his eyes filling with tears. I want to stay here with you and the animals. I know, buddy. I want you to stay too, but sometimes we have to do things we don't want to, so we can later do what we do want. Will you forget about me? The question broke Michael's heart. Never. And you know what? I'll do everything in my power to bring you back as soon as possible. Promise? I promise. Timmy hugged Michael tightly, as if it were the last time. Can I take Snowball too with me? He asked, pointing at the kitten. The kitten needs to stay here to finish treatment, but I promise to take really good care of him for you. Karen approached gently. Timmy, how about we go see the place where you'll be staying? There are other boys and girls there. Are they nice? Timmy asked, still clinging to Michael. They are, and the caregivers are very kind too. Michael helped Timmy pack the clothes he'd been given into a bag. Nancy said goodbye to the boy with tears in her eyes, promising to visit soon. Mrs. Wilson, who had witnessed the whole scene, stepped closer. Dr. Michael, that boy touched all of us in just 2 days. That's no coincidence. What do you mean? Sometimes life puts special people in our path for a reason. Don't give up on him. When Karen and Timmy left the clinic, Michael felt a deep emptiness. The absence of that little boy made the place feel lifeless. That same afternoon, he called his sister Jennifer. Jennifer, I need your help. I want to become a foster parent and, if possible, adopt Timmy. Michael, are you sure? It's a very serious decision. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. That boy showed me something I didn't know was missing. All right, I'll guide you through the process, but be prepared. It'll be long and complicated. In the following weeks, Michael devoted himself entirely to the process. He enrolled in foster parent training, organized all his financial documents, and began psychological evaluations. He visited Timmy at the shelter twice a week as permitted. The boy always brightened when he saw him, but Michael noticed he was thinner and quieter. How is he adjusting? He asked the shelter coordinator, Susan. Not well, Dr. Michael. He doesn't interact with the other kids, barely speaks, and we've often found him crying alone in his room. Does he eat well? Hardly. He says the food has no flavor, and every night he asks to sleep in a little house like the dogs. Michael's heart ached. Timmy was clearly depressed. Can I take him to spend a day at the clinic? Supervised, of course. Not yet, doctor. Michael, only after you're officially approved as a foster family. It was an agonizing wait. Michael studied every night about childcare, emotional development, childhood trauma. He wanted to be prepared to give Timmy all the love and support he deserved. During one of the visits, Timmy was particularly quiet. What's wrong, little one? Michael asked. I dreamed about Grandma Rose last night, the boy murmured. She said you were going to be my real dad. Is that true? I'm doing everything to make that happen, Timmy, but it might take a little while. I'll wait. Grandma Rose always said the good things in life take a little patience. Timmy's simple wisdom continued to surprise Michael. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us so much as we're just starting out. Now continuing, after 2 months of processing, Michael finally received preliminary approval to be a foster parent. There was still some paperwork left, but he could already have Timmy on weekends. When Karen called with the news, Michael could barely contain his emotion. Dr. Michael, you can pick up Timmy on Friday afternoon and bring him back Sunday evening. On Friday, Michael arrived at the shelter with gifts, some children's books, new clothes, and a photo of the clinic with all the animals. Dr. Michael! Timmy shouted as soon as he saw him, running into his arms. The boy was noticeably thinner, but his eyes shone just like before when he saw Michael. How are the animals? Is Snowball too okay? Everyone's fine, little one, and they can't wait to see you. On the way to the clinic, Timmy didn't stop talking. It was as if he had saved up months of conversations for that moment. You shaved differently, he observed. I did. You noticed. Grandma Rose used to say that when a man takes more care with his appearance, it's because he has someone important to impress. Michael smiled. He really had started taking better care of himself since Timmy came into his life. When they arrived at the clinic, Timmy ran straight to the animal enclosures. Snowball too had grown and was almost ready for adoption, but as soon as he saw the boy, he began meowing happily. Hi, Snowball, I'm back, Timmy said, hugging the little house. Nancy had decorated the clinic with drawings Timmy had made during his visits to the shelter. The boy was moved to see his drawings hanging on the walls. You kept all of them, he exclaimed. Of course, they're works of art. That weekend was magical. Timmy helped with the animals, slept in the same room as before, and for the first time in months, sang his little song to the animals again. Mrs. Wilson visited on Saturday, bringing homemade cookies. Our boy looks so handsome, she said, pinching Timmy's cheeks. Mrs. Wilson, Dr. Michael is going to be my dad, Timmy announced excitedly. How wonderful. He'll be an excellent father. Do you really think so? I'm sure of it, my dear. I've never seen a man change as much as Dr. Michael has since you came into his life. How has he changed? He smiles more, talks more tenderly to the animals, and has a sparkle in his eyes he didn't have before. Michael, overhearing the conversation from a distance, felt his heart warm. It was true. Timmy had transformed not just his routine, but his entire outlook on life. On Sunday evening, when he had to take Timmy back to the shelter, they were both sad. When can I come back? The boy asked. Next Friday. And soon, very soon, you'll be able to stay forever. Forever for real? Forever. The weekend visits became the most important thing in both their lives. Michael planned special activities. He took Timmy to the park, the movies, and Mrs. Wilson's house. During one of these outings, Timmy asked a question that caught Michael off guard. Dr. Michael, when I become your real son, can I call you Dad? Of course you can, little one. And will you call me son? Yes, I will. Even though I didn't come from your belly? The innocence of the question made Michael laugh. Timmy, a son isn't just someone who comes from your belly. A son is someone you choose to love and care for forever. So am I already your son in your heart? Yes. And you have been, for a long time. Timmy jumped into Michael's lap, beaming with happiness. After 3.5 months of the process, the day finally arrived when Michael could take Timmy home permanently as a foster family while the adoption proceedings continued. Karen came in person to hand over the boy. Dr. Michael, officially, Timmy is under your guardianship. We'll still have monthly follow-up visits, but he can live here now. Timmy had a small backpack with all his belongings. When he entered the clinic, he ran straight to the animal enclosures, as if he were finally coming home. Hi everyone, Daddy Michael brought me home, he announced to the animals. Michael felt overwhelming emotion hearing Timmy call him Dad for the first time. That night, as Timmy slept in his new room, Michael had converted the back room into a full-fledged child's bedroom. The veterinarian reflected on how his life had completely changed. 6 months ago, he was a lonely man who dedicated his life only to work. Now he had a son to care for, a reason to wake up every day with purpose. Timmy adapted quickly to the new routine. Michael enrolled him in a nearby school where the boy soon made friends. His grades were excellent, confirming what Michael had always known. Timmy was truly very smart. Life continued like this for another 6 months, until one day Karen appeared at the clinic with a worried expression. Dr. Michael, I need to speak with you. Someone has come forward claiming to be Timmy's aunt. Michael's world crumbled. What do you mean? A woman named Rebecca Jenkins approached Child Protective Services. She says she's the sister of Timmy's grandmother and has a right to custody. But, after all this time, is that possible? Unfortunately, yes. Biological kinship has legal priority. We'll have to assess whether she's fit to take custody of the child. Michael sank heavily into a chair. How could he break this to Timmy? When will she come to evaluate the situation? Tomorrow morning, and Dr. Michael, she wants to take Timmy immediately if she's approved. That night was one of the hardest of Michael's life. How could he explain to a 6-year-old that he might have to leave just when he finally felt safe and loved? He decided to talk to Timmy the next morning, before Rebecca's visit. "Little one, I need to tell you something important," he began, sitting beside him on the bed. "Is it something bad?" Timmy asked, sensing the seriousness in Michael's tone. "It might be. A woman who says she's your great-aunt has come forward. She wants to meet you." Timmy's face immediately closed off. "I don't have a great-aunt. Grandma Rose always said there was no one else left in the family. Sometimes people drift apart and then find each other again, little one." "Does she want to take me away?" Timmy asked, tears already starting to fall. Michael couldn't lie. "It's possible. But I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you. You're my dad. And you're my son, Timmy. You always will be, no matter what happens. But sometimes we have to follow the rules adults make." "Stupid rules," Timmy muttered, throwing himself into Michael's arms. At 10 in the morning, Rebecca Jenkins arrived accompanied by Karen. She was a woman around 40, well-dressed with dyed hair and manicured nails. "So this is my great-nephew," she said, looking at Timmy with a forced smile. Timmy hid behind Michael, clearly uncomfortable. "Hi, Timothy. I'm your Aunt Rebecca, sister of your Grandma Rose." "My name's Timmy, not Timothy," the boy murmured. "Well, now that you'll be living with me, we'll use your full baptismal name." Michael felt a pang of irritation. The woman had barely arrived and already wanted to change aspects of Timmy's identity. "Mrs. Rebecca," Karen intervened, "we need to discuss your situation before any decisions are made." They headed to Michael's office, leaving him alone with Timmy. "Daddy Michael, I don't like her," the boy whispered. "Why not?" "She smells different, and her eyes don't smile with her mouth." Michael was always amazed by Timmy's perception of people. The conversation between Karen and Rebecca lasted nearly 2 hours. When they came out of the office, Karen looked worried. "Dr. Michael, Mrs. Rebecca meets all legal requirements. She has stable income, owns her home, and is a biological relative." "And when would this happen?" asked Michael, his voice weaker than he intended. "She'd like to take Timmy today." "Today?" Michael exclaimed. "But he needs to say goodbye to school, his friends, the animals." "Doctor, I understand your concern," said Rebecca. "But the longer we wait, the harder it'll be for the child to adjust to his new reality." Timmy looked from one adult to another, trying to understand what was happening. "Daddy Michael, do I have to go with her?" Michael crouched to eye level with Timmy. "Little one, for now you're just going to see Aunt Rebecca's house, but I'll fight to bring you back, okay? Promise?" "I promise with all my heart." Rebecca grew impatient. "Come on, Timothy, my car's outside." "Can I take my drawings?" Timmy asked sadly. "Of course you can," Michael said, helping pack the drawings into a folder. "And can I say goodbye to the animals?" "Yes, you can." Timmy went to each little house, whispering farewells to the animals. Snowball, too, who had grown up and was still at the clinic, meowed sadly when Timmy said goodbye. "Take good care of them, okay, Daddy Michael?" "I will. And you take good care of yourself." When it was time to leave, Timmy hugged Michael so tightly it seemed he wanted to cling to him forever. "I love you, Daddy Michael." "I love you too, son, more than anything in this world." As Rebecca and Timmy left the clinic, Michael felt as if his heart had been ripped from his chest. Nancy wept openly, and even some of the animals seemed to sense the boy's absence. Mrs. Wilson, who had witnessed the whole scene, approached Michael. "Doctor, that woman didn't give me a good impression." "Why do you say that?" "In 70 years of life, I've learned to read people. She didn't look at Timmy with love. She looked at him like he was an object." "What can I do, Mrs. Wilson? The law is on her side." "The law isn't always right, Doctor, but true love always finds a way." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Timmy's room remained exactly as he'd left it, but the boy's absence made the whole house feel lifeless. The next day, he called Jennifer. "Jennifer, I need to know what legal options I have. I can't just accept them taking my son like this. Michael, technically she has legal rights, but if you can prove the child's well-being is being compromised, how can I do that? You'll need evidence and a good lawyer. Michael hired Dr. Robert Johnson, a lawyer specializing in child welfare law. He also began discreetly investigating Rebecca Jenkins's life. Meanwhile, he tried to maintain contact with Timmy, but Rebecca made the calls difficult. "Hello?" answered Rebecca when Michael called. "Hi, Rebecca. It's Dr. Michael. Can I speak to Timmy?" "Timothy is busy right now. He's adjusting to his new routine. Please, just 2 minutes. Dr. Michael, you need to understand that Timothy has a new life now. Dwelling on the past will only make it harder for him to adapt." And she hung up on Michael. Michael was desperate. How was Timmy feeling? Was he being treated well? Was he scared? After a week without being able to speak to the boy, he decided to go to Rebecca's house. She lived in a modest home in a distant neighborhood of Lexington. When he rang the doorbell, it was Timmy who answered. "Daddy Michael!" the boy shouted, throwing himself into his arms. Michael was shocked by Timmy's appearance. The boy was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes were dirty. "Hi, little one, how are you? I want to go back home," Timmy whispered in Michael's ear. At that moment, Rebecca appeared. "Dr. Michael, what are you doing here?" "I came to see how Timmy is adjusting." "He's fine. He just needs time. Can I come in?" Rebecca hesitated but eventually allowed it. The house was messy and reeked of cigarette smoke. Michael noticed there were no toys or children's books in sight. "Aunt Rebecca, can I show Daddy Michael my room?" Timmy asked. "He's not your father, Timothy, and you don't need to show him anything." "But I can, right?" the boy insisted. Timmy's room was actually a small storage space at the back of the house, with just a mattress on the floor and clothes scattered around. "Timmy, where are your drawings?" Aunt Rebecca threw them away. She said they were silly kid stuff. Michael felt a deep anger. How could someone throw away something so important to a child? "And how's school?" "I'm not going to school. Aunt Rebecca said she'll enroll me later." Michael knew it was mandatory to enroll a child in school immediately. This was neglect. "Timmy, have you been eating well?" The boy looked around and whispered, "Sometimes Aunt Rebecca forgets to make food. But it's okay. I'm not that hungry anyway." Michael's heart broke. How could Rebecca neglect Timmy like this? "Dr. Michael," Rebecca called from the living room. "I think it's best if you leave now. Timothy needs to get used to his new life." Michael crouched down in front of Timmy. "Little one, I have to go now, but I'll be back, and this time I'm taking you home." "Promise?" "I promise." The next day, Michael went straight to Dr. Roberts' office with all his observations. "Doctor, what you've described constitutes child neglect," the lawyer said. "We can file a motion to reverse custody." "How long could that take?" "If we can prove immediate neglect, it could be a matter of weeks." Michael also reached out to Karen at Child Protective Services. "Karen, I need to report a concerning situation about Timmy." He told her everything he'd observed at Rebecca's house. Karen took detailed notes. "Dr. Michael, I'll make an unannounced visit to Mrs. Rebecca's house tomorrow. If neglect is confirmed, we can take immediate action." The next day, Karen made the visit. What she found confirmed all of Michael's concerns. Timmy alone at home, without proper food, not attending school, living in poor conditions. "Dr. Michael," Karen called that afternoon. "I'm removing Timmy from Mrs. Rebecca's home now. She doesn't meet the minimum standards of childcare. Can he come back to me?" "Temporarily, yes, while we reopen his adoption case." When Michael arrived at Child Protective Services to pick up Timmy, he found the boy sitting in a little chair, swinging his legs and grinning from ear to ear. "Daddy, Michael, Aunt Karen said I can go back home." "That's right, little one. Let's go home." On the way back, Timmy wouldn't stop talking. "Daddy Michael, I knew you'd come get me. Grandma Rose appeared in my dream and said you wouldn't abandon me." "I'd never abandon you, my son." "And the animals? How are they?" "They can't wait to see you, especially Snowball too." When they arrived at the clinic, it was a celebration. Nancy cried with joy, Mrs. Wilson brought sweets, and even the animals seemed livelier. Timmy ran straight to the little houses, reuniting with his animal friends. "Hi everyone, Daddy Michael brought me back, now I'm never leaving again." Michael watched the scene with his heart overflowing with gratitude. His family was whole again. That night, as Timmy slept soundly in his own room, Michael reflected on everything they'd been through. The hardships had only strengthened their bond. 6 months later, the adoption process was finalized. Timmy officially became Timothy Michael Williams, the adoptive son of Michael Williams. At the final hearing, the judge asked Timmy if he wanted to be adopted by Michael. "I've been his son for a long time," the boy replied. "We just needed the paperwork." The judge smiled and banged the gavel. "Granted, Timothy Michael Williams, welcome officially to the Williams family." Michael lifted his son into his arms, both crying with emotion. "Now it's forever, little one. Forever, Daddy." After the hearing, they celebrated at the clinic. Nancy had organized a surprise party with all the neighbors and friends who had supported Michael's fight for custody of Timmy. Mrs. Wilson approached Michael. "Doctor, remember when I said sometimes life puts special people in our path for a reason?" "I do." "Well then, you two saved each other." It was true. Michael had saved Timmy from life on the streets and neglect, but Timmy had saved Michael from loneliness and emotional emptiness. 2 years later, the veterinary clinic had expanded. Michael hired an assistant and implemented an animal-assisted therapy program for children who had experienced trauma. Timmy, now 8 years old, helped with the program on weekends. His own journey of overcoming made him especially effective at connecting with other children who had suffered. "Daddy," Timmy said one Saturday afternoon, after helping a shy girl approach a little bunny, "I think Grandma Rose was right when she said people who've been through sad things can help other sad people better." "You think so?" "I do. That's why you understood me so well when I showed up here, and why I can help the kids in our program." Michael smiled, once again amazed by his son's wisdom. "You know what else, Daddy?" Timmy continued. "I don't think I ever needed to live in a real doghouse." "Why do you say that?" "Because I was always looking for a family, and when I saw you here with the animals, I knew I'd found my home." Michael hugged his son, remembering that day 3 years ago when a small, desperate boy had walked into his clinic asking if he could live in a doghouse. That innocent question had changed 2 lives forever, proving that sometimes the greatest miracles come in the smallest packages. "I love you, my son. I love you too, Daddy. Forever and ever." And there, surrounded by the animals they cared for together, father and son knew they had found exactly where they belonged, in each other's hearts. The end of the story. Now tell me, dear listener, what did you think of this touching story of Michael and Timmy? Do you believe true love always finds a way even in the toughest situations? Leave a comment sharing your feelings and if you know any similar stories. Your like and subscription to the channel help us so much to keep bringing stories that touch hearts and inspire.